Okay, hi, it's Maria Pieri here, BSME 2020 Chair. Thank you for joining myself, Laura Rowe, Sinead McIntyre and John L. Waters today for our lockdown lunch. If you have got any questions, there's a chat function just at the bottom, so please do go ahead and use the chat function and I will ask you questions as we go through the discussion today. So what we're going to do is we're going to do about half an hour of us chatting and discussing the topic that we've picked, and then we'll discuss all the questions that you guys might have. So with much of the world in lockdown due to the current pandemic and many sectors facing challenges, we at the BSME are exploring alternative ways to share content, successes, and hopefully supporting others and helping the publishing businesses. We will host a rolling program of online talks like this one, reviews, and we might even do a few quizzes if it all works out. And our hope is these will complement the events that we have had to postpone or cancel this year. Today, we're going to be talking about creating content in the COVID-19 market. What is working? The global pandemic has ripped up media norms, and editors of magazines and websites are facing a myriad of challenges with every passing week, myself included. So here I am. I'm Maria Pieri, the editorial director, as I said, for National Geographic Traveller UK and also the BSME chair. And today I'm joined by Laura Rose, the editor of Olive, Sinead McIntyre, editor-in-chief of Fabulous, and John L. Waters, I hope, editor of I Am Pulp, director, and I Magazine. So I think what we'll do is we'll just start off with a little intro from each of the panelists, and then we'll start with a Q&A with everything. So, Laura, I hand over to you.
So I am editor of a food and travel brand called Olive Magazine. We have a print magazine that's been going for about 17 years. We've got a website, podcast, social media, newsletters, all that jazz. And yeah, it's been very interesting times. But I've been editor of the brand for about 5 years.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. Sinead, how are you doing? Don't disappear on me as well. That'll be two techie issues in one go. Do you want to introduce yourself and let me know a little bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, sorry, I just disappeared there for a moment. I'm Sinead McIntyre, editor-in-chief of Fabulous, which comes out Sun on Sunday, the supplement with the Sun on Sunday. We're just all still busy creating magazines from home every week, which is a challenge, but I mean, we're on our fourth one, I think, now from home, so we're all getting a bit more used to it.
Okay, fantastic. John, I've lost John. So you're going to have to forgive me, guys. I've lost John for now. I will just tell you a bit about myself, I guess, as well. So I'm also creating content. We've been working from home now, I think, is it 5 weeks or 6 weeks? I'm very much used to working from home. I'm not particularly enjoying it anymore, I think. I think it was fun to start off with. I'm missing the team. We've had lots of changes. We've still working very hard, but having some changes of frequency and some pagination changes. So we can discuss that a little bit more. So what I'll do is, I think I'll throw it over to Laura and say, so what are you currently working on? What's working for you right now? What type of content are you working on?
Well, I'm sure like everybody else, we're very much trying to listen to our readership across all the different platforms, looking at the data, listening to our users on social media. And luckily for us, lots and lots and lots of people are at home and cooking. So that's really positive in terms of that we're able to help our customers in that respect. So lots of cooking from scratch, obviously, lots of baking, lots of sourdough making. I've been trying to experiment at home myself. So yeah, I think people are really kind of reconnecting and obviously being forced to cook in possibly a very different way. So that's been really exciting. So on Olive, we have 3 key editorial pillars, which are Cook, Eat, Explore. So that's recipes, restaurants, and travel. And obviously 2 out of our 3 are a little bit challenging at the moment. So with restaurants, we're still very much trying to support the industry. So instead of telling people which restaurants to go to, we are doing chef recipes. We are championing those that are pivoting and adjusting to the time. So it might be restaurants that are cooking for the NHS key workers. It might be restaurants that are doing delivery or restaurants that are doing, hampers to send to people's homes so they can cook restaurant quality meals at home. So we're doing lots of that. We're also, in terms of travel, I'm really interested to know what you're doing, Maria, as well. But travel is obviously very, very difficult. We've definitely pivoted a lot and tried lots of different things, but again, putting it out to our readers and asking them what they want. But we're doing very much a mixture of armchair travel, but all of that content is stuff that we've already done before, obviously, because we can't go out and travel. So we can't do any new content in terms of travel writing, but we are doing things like it might be your favorite holiday foods that we're reminiscing about, or it might be virtual travel experiences, or it might be like local foodie producers that you can support in different areas, that sort of thing. So yeah, we're changing and adapting all the time. It's obviously intense, but it's really exciting as well. There's lots of new challenges and lots of new areas to explore that we possibly hadn't done before.
And it sounds like you're really busy. So you're
really
obviously
busy.
having to, yeah. So are you still? We'll come back to that. I'll come back to whether you've got full team or not, and we'll circle back. But I'll just go over to Sinead. What are you guys working on right now?
So, I mean, we have got lots of different platforms. We have the magazine, we have Fabulous Daily, which is in the daily newspaper. We have our website, and we have social, and all of them produce various different types of content. The magazine content is celebrity interviews, fashion, food, travel, lifestyle pieces. As Laura said, we've had to adapt quite a lot of that. So a lot of the magazine is based on shooting. So one of our USPs is that we shoot all of our covers, and obviously that is not possible anymore. So in the run up to us beginning to realise that we were all going to have to start working from home, we shot quite a lot of covers in like the very last week before lockdown. But we're about to run out of those. We're just having to look at other ways to do covers, and that doesn't mean going down the concept route for us, because that doesn't really work, because our readers just really love celebrity and those celebrity covers. So it's like trying to see who we can do interviews with, and then trying to source pictures of them that haven't been seen elsewhere. This weekend we've got a Princess Charlotte birthday cover, because the royals do very well for us. So it's just trying to find different ways to do the content that we do. As Laura said, travel, we've actually just taken travel out altogether, and we're concentrating more on food and homes, because people are at home and they can do stuff with their home still. And food, digitally, food is doing really, really well for us. But it's those things that are probably much more our readers, like how do you cook bread with 2 ingredients? So obviously nobody can get bread at the start of this, or how do you make really crumbly shortbread? All those kinds of things, they're all doing really well. And a lot of digital content that's doing well is mums creating things for the children that are really cheap. Like one of our biggest stories last week was a woman who made a outdoor kitchen for her kid for a tenner. All those things are doing really well. Fakeaways, how to make McDonald's with how to make a Big Mac at home, all things like that. So very like our readers, but yeah, we've had to adapt. Magazine wise, we can't shoot fashion anymore. So, every week we're just trying to, as things run out that we did before lockdown, we're having to work out how we change, how we adapt those pages. So it's a challenge, but it's one that we're all rising to. And we all enjoy a challenge. I think how long we'll enjoy it for is another matter. But
agreed.
At the minute when we get to Wednesday, Thursday, and the mic has gone out, we're like, phew, we did it. On to the next one.
So
I can positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I can hear that you've both adapted how you've worked. What's been the hardest thing or the hardest challenges? Covers sound like it's been an issue as well as images. Yeah,
I mean, for us, just that is our USP, is creating really great covers, and so yeah, that is problematic. But we just have to have different ideas and different ways to do things. I mean, I think that it's just all a bit of a challenge, to be honest. We've had to change. We used to do a thing called 24 hours with at the front of the book, and now, 24 hours with is very boring because nobody's doing anything. We've had to change that. We've had to just keep adapting, and that's just the challenge, really. Nothing is specifically more difficult than anything else. It's just keeping on your toes, and also we're doing a lot of coronavirus content. A woman who's living with her husband that she knows cheated on her, and she's in lockdown with him. Those kind of stories, real stories that people are sort of going through at the moment, are all doing really well.
And what about you, Laura, in terms of shoots? I imagine you're having to really rethink how to do all the kind of food shoots. Sorry, you're on mute, Laura.
I was trying to do good practice and then I forgot. I think we've got John back. Hello.
Hi, John.
So yeah, that's been a massive challenge for us, obviously, because we, like you pride yourself on your covers, Sinead, we pride ourselves on our quality food imagery. That is our bread and butter. And so to not be able to go to photo shoots is really, really hard. But that in itself is, again, proved quite exciting, because whilst we have this very set way of doing photo shoots now, what I'm coining is like contained photographic studio. So we're working with photographers who can photograph the food, prop style the food, and food style the food, all from their own home. So these are amazingly talented people, and I'm very, very grateful to be working with the guys and ladies that we are. So yeah, that's been really difficult, but I think that's, part of this process is adjusting to also like what we consider quality images and quality filming and all that sort of thing, like across the company. And even, on our TV screens, aren't we? We're seeing all of these adverts put together of things like this. And I think we're all just adjusting to everything not being quite as glossy and spick and span as we were potentially used to. But I find that, I've definitely had my challenging moments, but I'm finding it really exciting of, new ways of working and thinking about how that will then, impact our future working as well, and whether what we were doing was the right way, or if there's a better way or a different way of doing it going forward.
And in terms of frequency, obviously Fabulous has not been impacted, but in terms of frequency, I'm presuming, Laura, that is it still the same, or have you had any changes there?
So far we're sticking with, so all of our platforms, all of our areas where we touch our customers have been on the rise, other than newsstand. So our subscription for print base is going up and up. So we need to kind of deliver for them and be useful to them still. So frequency hasn't changed. The nature of, like you mentioned, pagination, we are going down size with some of our issue, but that's because we don't have as many advertising pages because people aren't spending as much money. So the amount of content's probably more, but the pages are less. So it's just again about adapting. And I think it's slightly easier now that we're all in this, I hate the term because everybody's using it, new normal. But we're all like a bit more used to it now, aren't we? So it's less kind of trying to predict what's going to happen, because we know that none of us can do that. So we're just adapting. Yeah, we're all adapting. I'm just seeing if John is back. Hi, John. Are you back? Oh, hi,
John.
So, John, I'm going to step you right in there. How have you had to adapt or rethink any of the content that you've had to do, and has it had any impact on pagination or frequency?
No, but we're a very different kind of magazine. Our frequency is very low. We've been working on issue 100 of the magazine, so that's kind of bumper special issue with the biggest pagination, the biggest number of advertising pages ever in the magazine's history. And it was kind of about, it's getting pretty close to going at the time the lockdown struck. And so we've actually had to rethink certain aspects of it, not really in changing the content, but just that we realized that because of all the distribution systems breaking down, and we're an international magazine, so we rely on the magazine being shipped to the States. Our biggest territories outside the UK are the States and Italy. So it'll be a while before the magazine can get properly shipped out there. So we are going to reflect on what's happened a little bit, but only where appropriate. There's a lot of material that it's about visual culture, it's about graphic design. We're a kind of professional magazine, so there's also that problem. It's usually going to people's studios and businesses rather than their homes. So there's all those kind of challenges to face as we actually get into printing and distributing the magazine. Online, online with I is about reminding people that we still exist, because there's such a long gap between issues of the magazine. And that's been really where we used to have a very busy events page. We suddenly discovered the events page was all about exhibitions and conferences that were closing down, that were shutting their doors, and we've had to switch that over to online events like this one, and online tours of design galleries and the like. So the content, the content hasn't changed. The way the content is framed has changed.
Yeah, that's true. And we're having some questions come in, which I might as well just bring straight into the conversation. Firstly, somebody's asking me about the travel market, obviously from our side. How are we working? What are we doing in terms of content and what we're creating? We've obviously been hit quite hard. Advertising has been hit really hard in the travel sector. There are some predictions that maybe mass travel won't really start again until probably 2021. Which is a bit scary. Although on the other anecdotal side, I do know people that are still booking holidays for October, November, December. So I think they're the optimists of us. In terms of our content, we've had to really rethink how we look at the online content particularly. We're trying to introduce more original content online because we're going to have bigger gaps between the magazines. We've merged our May-June issue almost immediately. We're now looking at merging into September, October, and November, December until the advertising returns. It does make me wish now we had a massive subscriber database so we wouldn't have to rely so much on the on sales. But I don't know about you guys, but if you are on sale, we've had obviously a huge hit from trying to just get the magazine out to distribute, and also then being able to actually work out how to get people to buy it. I mean, if you can't buy it in the shops, then how are you going to be able to pick it up? And what's our ABC going to look like next year? All those concerns are there, but I think hopefully everyone's in the same boat. So we'll all have terrible figures together.
Yeah, I think everyone is in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't buy the magazine or you can't get to the newsagent that easily, it is an issue. I'm not entirely sure how long the new normal will be. I think somebody's asked us how long will that be. That was a question from John Inners, who's also asking, Laura, I might as well ask you, have you seen a growth in subscription and digital traffic?
Yeah, we've seen a massive growth in subscription, not just on Olive, but across the board, immediate media, and digital traffic's through the roof. We were already doing exceptionally well on our website, but we're doing even better than we were predicting, which is really rewarding. But again, you still have the... Oh, sorry, I think my cat's having a fight. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think, what was I saying? You still have the same challenges in that you don't have the packages and the partnerships that you would have digitally. And, we're all putting out content for free online. Well, I guess most of us are. So you still have the same challenges, but I think it's about, this is a real opportunity for all of us to kind of, where we still do have audiences, to really deepen the engagement with them and be as helpful and useful and entertaining and uplifting as possible. And I think luckily we're delivering on that at the moment.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, even for our travel content, we've really looked at kind of a little bit closer to home. Although when it first hit, we started looking at Europe, and obviously Europe was affected. So then we started looking at the UK. The UK has now been affected. So what do we do now? We are looking at sort of longer form pieces for us. Most of the content that we create for NGC in the print issue, there's a lot of it that's very much inspirational, and we introduced a campaign called Stay Inspired that has basically focused on our longer reads, but also kind of things like inspiration from authors, or what the kids are actually doing at home, or destinations we would love to revisit. A bit like a kind of postcards from home type scenario that a lot of the newspapers are doing, the armchair travel, though we're trying not to peg it as armchair travel because we know that almost feels like there isn't longevity in that content. And I'd like to think that what we're creating could be read in a year's time when this is all over, and that still could be inspiring. So we're kind of looking at different series for it. We are very much having to look at original content on its and rethink how we create that content, and rethink what value it will have now, what value it will have later, and on a smaller team, which is an issue. And I said I'd come back to it earlier. So in terms of staff and resources, are you finding that you're having to work on less staff, less resources? Have you had to furlough lots of staff? Sinead, I'll go over to you because you sound like you were saying earlier that perhaps not.
No, we've not furloughed staff at the moment because we're still doing exactly the same amount of work. So, we're still producing a magazine every week. As Laura was saying, next week is our first reduced pagination issue. So, but because of the lack of advertising, there's still just so much content to create. So, I mean, we're on a small team already. and it's kind of impossible to produce the magazine from home, which is slower anyway. It's a slower process with everybody's Wi-Fi and the amount of people on Wi-Fi. And to do that with less people just wouldn't be possible. So we have reduced our Pagi, as Laura has, but we have not reduced staff, because I just honestly don't know how we would do it, to be honest, how we would get the mag on.
You're a weekly title, so I guess you're going to need all resources that you can get, right? So
well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We need the same resources. I mean, you know, some people probably have had to change what they're doing. For example, the fashion team, because they're not, a lot of their job was shooting or calling in or returning. You know, they're getting much more involved in kind of the social side of things and the digital side of things, and sort of creating content on there. So, I mean, we're just making sure that everyone is busy, but the actual team that produce the magazine are as busy as they have ever been, probably more so, because, as I said, it is a much slower process, and getting used to it at the start was difficult, especially with Easter.
I've got a question here that sort of ties into it. Ali McClintock Warner has asked, Sinead, with fashion, are you doing anything with the make and do and mend? Are you looking how people can refresh their wardrobe from home, clicking into Thrifter Trend?
Yeah.
Like the TV program where they restore things.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing that in on the daily pages. In The Sun, we've got a new franchise called Green with Envy, which is to do with just recycling. I mean, fashion was kind of heading that way anyway. There's been a lot of talk about, you know, fast fashion and people just not buying so much and actually looking in their wardrobe, mending things, changing things up. So we were already going down that route, and we've as part of our general sort of fashion ethos. So yes, we are doing that in the fabulous daily pages, and we will be doing more of it in the magazine as well. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll go back to Laura, in terms of furloughing staff or any kind of a reduction in resources, has that happened for you?
Yeah, unfortunately we've had to furlough 2 of our staff, but it's very much taken with the view that it's to try and protect their jobs long term. But obviously with changing our output in terms of not producing as much travel content, it was felt that, for example, our travel editor could be furloughed at this time. But we're very, very lucky to be part of Immediate Media and have the support of kind of other brands and the wider central team. So we've got lots of support from BBC Good Food, for example, at the moment, which is amazing. And what they're doing is just actually, well, across the board, actually, across Immediate Media, it's really inspiring to see what other brands are doing, and also brands coming together as well and supporting each other across different brands and publishers. It's really great.
I've noticed that as well.
Yeah.
John, what about you? Any changes for you, staff-wise?
No, we have such a tiny staff. I mean, no one is full-time. And we have a huge network of freelance contributors, subs and photographers and designers and people who tip us off about things, and that network is still there. In fact, they've got time on their hands. So, you know, it's actually quite sociable at the moment, hearing from all kinds of people internationally about how they're dealing with things or just telling us about things they're doing. One thing about stuff that I'm very thankful about, I had no idea, you know, that no one really saw a pandemic of this scale coming, apart from government in 2016, maybe, when they closed it down. But we had to adapt to a Dropbox system because my assistant editor, Sarah, moved to Buenos Aires last year. So, and then Holly, our art editor, moved to Bristol. So we've had 2 key members of the team in totally different places. And we just got used to working that way at the beginning of the year. And, you know, really, if that hadn't been set up, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now. So it's very interesting how, and also lots of the designers I've spoken to really, over the past few years, have just got more comfortable with working with clients, working with their, particularly coders. People can work wherever they want to be for family reasons or for just because they want to be by the beach or something. So it's actually really that new way of working, that new normal was already there before COVID made it absolutely essential for companies like ours.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, we are also very familiar with working with things like Zoom all the time, because we do it very much with our partners in the States. So with NG, they very much work across Zoom. So we were used to the webinars and things like that. So it made it slightly easier. I've got a question from John Innes. Again, he's just saying, have I needed furlough at Nat Geo Traveller? Yes, we have. I mean, National Geographic Traveller is published by APL Media, and as APL Media, yes, we've had to furlough quite a lot of staff because travel has been obviously quite hard hit. Also, with the publication dates moving and us reducing frequency, for example, our next print date isn't until mid-June. So in theory, we wouldn't really need to work on it until about 4 weeks ahead of that because we've already done the groundwork. So for us, yes, we've had to furlough staff, but I'm hoping to bring them back at least 4 weeks before June. And then I should welcome them back with open arms because at the moment it's quite a skeletal team. I think I'm going to push on and actually start to asking people like what content is actually working. So really get to the crux of it. For us, COVID-19 content still doing really well. Not part of our .co.uk travel site, but very much part of the Nat Geo site as a whole. In terms of the travel content doing well, we found that the food stuff still does really well. Hot topics, anything with a debate or report is still doing really well. And our Stay Inspired campaign, we have seen that appear in the sort of top 20 posts for the week and stuff. So that's doing very well. Sinead, what are you finding in terms of actual content that's working for you, and why is it working well for you, do you think?
I mean, again, as I was saying earlier, the COVID stuff, but kind of practical parenting's always done very well for us. So a lot of parenting content, but basically how do you cope at home, like home teaching your children, keeping them occupied, baking with them, all that kind of very practical and kind of uplifting content is working very well for us. Like people just want to hear that people are doing this at home and how they're making it better for themselves. And it's very kind of that practical tip-led kind of instructional stories that they can take stuff away from. And then things on the magazine that normally do well, still do well, like serial killers. You know, our readers are very into crime. And, you know, maybe things could be worse.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
That kind of thing, which has always done very well for us because our readers are very into true life crime. So any of those Netflix, you know, the real story behind, because obviously everyone is watching Netflix more than even they were before this happened. So it's like the true stories behind those Netflix.
I've cancelled Netflix.
All of that stuff is doing very well for us. And as I said, the cooking content, the sort of easy recipes at home kind of thing, you know, basically all those things are all doing very, very well at the minute.
And John, what's doing well for you at the moment? What are you finding?
I really don't worry about that too much. I just kind of put things out that I think our readers will enjoy. And one thing I've done again, it's this thing of assuring people that we're still here and we're still making a magazine that they can actually touch, hold in their hands and put on their coffee table and their bookshelves. We've been doing, every day I've been doing an item from the I archive. We have this fabulous archive going back to 1990 of great articles, long-form articles, some of them about typography and graphic design. And so every day we'll do one. And sometimes it's something from the 90s, you know, like an article saying, I don't know how to use a Mac, but I know a man who can. Or we might have a more recent article about the issue of ethics in graphic design, whether we need a first things first for the digital world, which is becoming, you know, that's quite a hot issue particularly within the whole problem of
no, we've lost you, John. Sorry, we've lost you, John. We'll come back. We'll come back to you. Is that okay, John? We'll just come back to you. Laura, what are you finding that's doing well?
We're definitely seeing it change as kind of people's shopping habits are changing, more, less available. I love these video chats, they're so funny.
Oh dear.
I feel like I've got one of those 80s electronic background tracks.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
John,
now. There we go. Yes, so we've kind of seen it adapt. As I said, all of our content's really focused on recipe-based content now, and that's always been a bread and butter, but it's particularly relevant now. But we're seeing it change as and when things are available. So, for example, cooking without yeast, baking without eggs, bakes without flour, all those sorts of things were big for us. And then it's also about using, the reason why there aren't chickpeas and tinned tomatoes and flowers in stores because some people have been buying a lot of them. So that is obviously very popular content too. So things like cooking with tinned chickpeas, cooking with tinned tomatoes, cooking with condensed milk, all those kinds of things have been doing super well for us. And also our podcasts have been doing amazingly well. I think people are taking the time to sort of sit back and like deep dive on subjects that they're interested in. So we've been curating a lot of the podcast content that we've got. We released, we did a special lockdown series. That was kind of a real learning curve for us actually, because we've always thought we need to go out and about to record our podcast, which is great because you do kind of get that human interaction and you kind of get a good connection with your guests. But actually you can record really good quality podcasts over Zoom. Who knew? So we did a special lockdown series last week, which did really, really well for us. So that focused on really easy baking, using your store cupboard and utilizing things like your freezer as well. Travel advice. So if you have booked travel, what to do about that, who you can go to protect virtual travel. We did how to support your restaurant industry near you, and we did something else as well that was super interesting and I can't remember, but it's done very, very well. So yeah.
Okay, that sounds really good. That sort of leads into the next question. How are you planning for the future? What are you looking for future content, and how are you getting inspiration from that? Are you working well with PRs? Are you still in relationships with them, like talking to them lots? How, and in terms of freelancers as well, are you planning ahead? Are you commissioning? So I think I can do that to all three of you. Laura, do you want to start, and then we can then go around?
Yeah, I think it's I'm a bit of a last minute Laura anyway, so I'm not so good at forward planning. Certainly when it comes to commissioning, I like doing things a bit more close to the wire. But I think particularly at the moment, I'm kind of nervous to commission super long term because we just don't know what's going to happen or whether it'll still be relevant. When you have these, especially in print, when you have these long lead times, stuff we could be writing about now might not be relevant in 2 weeks' time. So it does make me nervous to commission long term, but we are certainly planning and having different contingency plans, and PRs are absolutely essential to that, to helping us, especially for those of us that do have less staff. We need those helpful ears and eyes on the ground and the stories sort of coming to us as well. So yeah, definitely super, super useful to speak to PRs. And whilst I'm probably not like welcoming freelance pitches, I'm definitely open-minded but I just have got very, very little budget now, so it's harder to actually do that.
Very similar to you, very similar story. And you, Sinead, how you finding commissioning ahead?
I mean, we are kind of doing things the same as we always have, because to be honest, our content is female content. So, it's issues that are relevant to women. So they don't really change. The only thing we're being careful about is, COVID related content. For example, I don't know, we've commissioned a woman who gave birth by herself because her husband came into the room with her. Well, that kind of needs to be flat planned kind of before we come out of lockdown. But I mean, who knows when that's going to be. But, that kind of content we're trying to get in sooner rather than later. But most other things that we do are pretty, they're always going to be relevant to women. Even stuff that we have done around COVID, for example, like how to stay zen. I mean, that's always relevant. So our content doesn't really change that much, to be honest, in terms of like what we commission or the kind of content that we're doing. We still are using freelancers and we still always welcome pitches. I guess we're kind of trying to steer away from very heavy content at the minute, because I feel like our job is really to kind of cheer people up and be entertaining and give them something else to think about. And so that would be the only real change that we've made, apart from the serial killers, obviously.
More than the serial killers. I think that's brilliant. I think that content's amazing. I've sort of said, how are you measuring your success? But I think what I'll do is I'll come back to that, and what I'll do is I'll let you to think about how you measure. I'll just ask some of the questions that people have got, and if you've got questions, please ask them now. So I'll just go through them as we've got them here. From John Innes, he says, some reports are showing a reduction in podcast listening as people aren't commuting. Are you seeing any of this? I guess this is to Laura.
I'm really sorry, I got really distracted because somebody was knocking on my door. Can you repeat the question? I'm so sorry.
Are you finding that less people are listening to your podcast because they're not commuting, or are you finding the opposite? I think you said earlier that was more
the opposite. We've had this month alone, we were up 44% on our podcast listens. So
that's
people,
amazing.
which is really, really good. I think, people. Again, it's a horrible term, but it's the new normal, isn't it? People are just doing things in a different way. So people might need to have like a little bit of zen during their working day. I'm sure all of us are working way longer than we want to be and don't have any kind of divide between their home life and their work life now. So to go and sit with a podcast in your bedroom, escaping from your partner, or, outside in your garden if you're lucky enough to have space, or on your daily walk if you're going out and getting your government advised exercise, then it's just people are doing it in different ways, and the key is that we're being helpful or entertaining whilst they're adjusting to that, I think. So
okay, fantastic, thank you. I'm going to just do some quick ones. In terms of travel, will you be focusing more on staycations? How will you push the creativity here? And that's from Amy Boniface. Yes, we will do staycations, but as I said previously, our magazine's very much about inspiration. So we'll still be looking at photographic content, which is really popular for us, obviously, with National Geographic as a brand. So, and any of even far-reaching destinations are still really interesting for people to see. I think people are still wanting to read the escapism stuff, which I think leads into what somebody asked a bit later on. Are people looking for escapist content? I would say from travel, yes. I think some people are really looking for a return to being able to read about it and then start actioning it. So we will still provide that content. And then the next one, Freya, I think we've answered that one, which is the PR question. Simon Tapscott, with the newsstand shut for the foreseeable future, how important are new subscription platforms such as Yumpu News? I haven't heard of that one. And Readly, which I have heard, from Simon Tapscott at Circus Journal. Sinead, do you want to answer that one?
Well, obviously we don't have a subscription model for Fabulous. I mean, our website is just free, and that's how people are accessing.
In terms of the newsstand distribution, have you noticed a huge difference? In fact, I did read a report that said that newspapers are actually doing really well.
No, I mean, there's definitely a massive difference in terms of people being able to access newspapers, being able to get to the shops. There's definitely been a fall in circulation. And whether, we just all need to hope that once this is lifted that people get back out to the shops again. But I mean, obviously the Sun has initiated its own sort of kind of 12 weeks free delivery, just making sure that the papers get out there in some different way, shape or form to customers. But yeah, there's definitely been the drop-off that everyone has seen in terms of people actually being able to get to the shops.
And in terms, John, are you back with us?
I'm here. Yeah, I've been listening.
You are here. I was going to say, so in terms of subscription platforms, have you been reaching out to others, or are you looking for, are you finding that you are finding more subscriptions because of the COVID-19 scenario?
Well, the subscription income is kind of a steady thing, and we also sell a lot of back issues because people like to collect it and fill in gaps in their collections. We don't use any of the digital platforms because the feedback generally from both our advertisers and from readers is that they really like and treasure the the printed magazine. It's a beautiful thing, and that's really the core of our business. What we do online is a different thing.
Okay, that's true. And Laura?
I'm going to say hi to Simon because I used to work with Simon in a different life. So we used to be on Readly, I think, if that's how you say it, Readly. And then as a company, we stopped working with them. Olive is on Apple News Plus. But yeah, it's not, I mean, I can't speak with too much authority on it, but I would say that really direct subscription models work best for us, because obviously we're getting all of the revenue for that. So, and we have definitely adapted our subscription models. So across the business, we're working on temporary subscriptions with where you don't need to have a direct debit, that are just 3 months long, and we've just got lots of different types of subscriptions to again be as kind of as helpful and as useful as possible. And we've definitely seen uplift on Olive and across the business for that. So that's our priority for subscriptions.
Yeah, and we also use pretty much quite a lot of those, actually. I haven't heard of Yump and News, but we do use Readly, and we are on Magclona? Not Magclona. I thought one other, which I apologise, I've forgotten. But we are on quite a lot of different subscription models. We did find that when we did do a subscription offer a couple of weeks ago with a company, that we saw a huge surge in subscriptions, with about 2,000 over a week, which is unheard of for us. So I think there is an appetite for people to look for something to read, and as you say, John, very much in the flesh as an actual product. I've got a question here, which I think is good to touch on quickly. For long lead print, what are your thoughts on getting the tone of voice right when we don't know the national mood come July, August, September? I think tone of voice is a really interesting question, because I think we've all had to adapt how we're writing, what we're writing. But then for us online, we've also had to think, how are we going to make sure that still reads well in a year's time? So we'll have to revisit it. So, Laura, you're nodding, so I'm going to go to you first.
Well, it's just because, so we sent our April issue to press kind of the first week of lockdown. And I think everybody was in panic mode then, and I'm very much including myself in that. And I think you can almost hear the panic in my voice in my editor's letter. And I kind of feel a bit more at peace with the situation now. But so reading it back, it does read a bit panicky. But the sense then, I think, was definitely to kind of, everybody was feeling that sense of panic, and sort of we were trying to be as helpful and useful as possible. And we were also asking for loads of reader feedback. And I think now that we're doing our May issue virtually, online, now it's kind of thinking, right, well, I have to be careful of any mention of like accepting that lockdown's a normality, because by the time we come out, we might not be in lockdown anymore, or we might be in a different version of lockdown. So I think the tone is still to be a mixture of practical but also joyful. Joyful is a big thing for us, so keep uplifting spirits like we were talking about. But in terms of kind of referring in print to COVID and coronavirus, it's really, that's a really tricky one, I think, and one I'm still navigating.
Sinead or John, would you like to jump in here just quickly before we finish? And I think if I haven't asked all your questions, what we'll do is we will take them on board and then answer them and then send them back to you as the panel, if you don't mind, because I think we've run out of time. But Sinead or John, would you like to step in here about the tone of voice?
Well, actually, slight variation on that. We also make a client magazine for Fedrigoni, the Italian paper company. And of course, it was actually early warning from our friends in Italy that made us really aware of just how bad this thing was going to be. Weirdly, we actually finished printing an issue just before the lockdown, so they're still sitting in boxes. The latest issue of Pulp is still sitting in boxes in Italy, and won't be distributed until really things have started to settle down. And that's distributed all over Europe as well, and the world. And I think sometimes you have to not worry about your tone of voice. You have to keep your tone of voice to be consistent with what you are. What we're going through worldwide is so serious that it's very difficult. Everyone feels very small and very, very trivial in comparison to people who are doing really serious, important jobs to deal with the illness and death that's striking and is going to strike, more and more places around the world. I think a magazine has to kind of be true to its own nature and to its readers, and not try to change too much, because then I think you'll be. As someone said earlier on, I think you said, Maria, you need to make something that will still work in a year's time or 10 years' time.
Yeah, agreed. And on that note, I think I'm going to have to call it a day, unfortunately. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the session. There seems to be lots of questions outstanding, so we will try our best to answer those. Remember to join us back again on Wednesday, the 6th of May, for a very special panel, which will include Jamie Kafash, editor of Pulse, Steve Ford, editor of Nursing Times, and Beth Kennedy, editor of C&D. And also to keep an eye on our social threads for other forthcoming online events, panel discussions and talent awards updates, including the very exciting release of the shortlisted entries to the talent awards, which will be sometime in May. Our role as a society is to support the print and digital publishing industry and those who work within it. Our strapline is championing editorial excellence, and this is continuing to be the case as we navigate our way through these very testing times. Now more than ever, we look to you all for innovation, hope and perspective. We hope you enjoyed our lockdown lunch today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you again to Laura Rowe, editor of Olive, Sinead McIntyre, editor-in-chief of Fabulous, and John L. Waters, editor Iron Pulp, director I Magazine. And goodbye from me, Maria Pieri, 2020 BSME chair, editorial director, NUT, as if I need to say. Thank you, everyone. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Really appreciate it. Bye.